Hey guys, Keith here with Slingmods.com. I'm here today to do a video on a new product we have available for the Polaris Slingshot. We have PRP suspension seats. Now we tested about 6 different aftermarket seats for the Slingshot, and these are by far our favorite seats, and there's a ton of reasons why. And I want to kind of briefly go over those reasons. I want to go over the customization that you can do on our website with our seat builder. And then I also want to go over a brief installation video to show you how to put these in your Slingshot. So as far as appearance is concerned, they're using all marine vinyl fabric. One of the important elements in the Slingshot is obviously to keep it as weatherproof as possible. PRP was the only company we dealt with that was offering a complete marine vinyl solution, which is mold and mildew resistant. Two, they have suspension seats in the bottom, so if you have a bad back, you're getting a lot smoother ride there. There's also a lumbar support that you can add onto the seat if you want lower back support. You can add on seat heaters. There'll be a pad in both the butt pad and the back pad. As far as customizable colors, pretty much anything you can think of. We built an online seat builder on our website, and it allows you to change the color of the seats to pretty much anything you can imagine. If you have custom paint or custom wrap job on your Slingshot, this is a great solution for you because it's just endless customization on color schemes. And the color scheme customization is really broken down into 4 components. You have your center color, you have your arms and your hips accent color, you have the back of the seat, which is a black carbon vinyl I chose here that also goes down to the back, and then you have your stitching color. Some other nice features they put on the seat here is they put a mesh on the back, so if you're going to upgrade to a subwoofer enclosure behind either the driver or passenger seats, you don't want your woofer to excurge into vinyl fabric because it will kind of make like a slapping sound. So they put a mesh here so that your subwoofers can operate properly. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do an installation video just to kind of briefly show you how to do it. It's pretty cut and dry. I mean, you're really using almost all of the factory hardware and bolts to put these back in. There's just a few things that are added to the kit that are different than your factory seats as far as assembly is concerned. One last thing I want to point out is you don't have to run the PRP logo if you don't want it. If you do want it, you can color match the stitching to match one of the accent colors on your seats. You can also add your company logo like we did, and if you do not have a digital stitch file, they can also convert that for you so that you can keep that for future embroidery projects like hats and things like that. So let me get started with the installation process. Alright, I'm going to start with the driver's side seat. There's 8 bolts to remove to get the driver's side seat out. I'm going to do it in 2 stages. I'm going to remove the back of the seat, and then I'm going to remove the base of the seat. The back of the seat has 4 bolts on it, 15mm. I already have those loosened. I'm going to go ahead and pull those bolts out, and I'm going to slide the back of the seat off. Alright, I have the back of the driver's seat removed. I have it sitting here. There's nothing on this back portion of the seat on both the driver or passenger side that you're going to be utilizing again. None of the bolts on the back or none of the seat framing or anything like that. That is going to be part of your seat junkyard, which I'm starting to build a little collection over there. Now for the base of the seat, there's 4 additional bolts. These are all 15mm, and these all fire down. So there's one here, there's one here, and then let me slide this back. There's one here, and there's one back there. So I'm going to go ahead and take those 4 bolts out now too. Alright, I removed the 4 bolts that hold the base of the seat into the Slingshot. There's a wiring harness on the back of the base of the seat and that you need to unplug. There's a little plug here that you just pull up on this clip and slide that out, and then that's also held in place with a plastic clip. The harness is. You can use a panel removal tool like this to get under it and pry it off, or a flathead screwdriver or something like that. Just be careful you don't pierce the wires. So let me get that off. That looks like this. So that's what you're looking like at this stage. You have your harness on the floor, got the back of your seat off, have unbolted the base of your seat. Now I'm just going to pull the base out as one unit, and I'm going to be staring right there at the floor pan. Okay, I have the seat completely removed now for the driver's side. So I want to show you the components just raw here. You have the base, you have the back, which you are not going to use at all, and then you have 8 bolts, all of which you're going to reuse. So unlike the back of the seat, on the base, the seat frame is bolted into the seat cushion. So we are going to be using the seat base on both the driver and passenger seats, and that's for a variety of different reasons, but the main reason is that we have an OEM fitment with the seat brackets, so your holes are going to line up perfectly when you put in your PRP seats. Most aftermarket seats use aftermarket seat brackets, and the fitment is never perfect. So what I like about what PRP did is they utilized the factory seat hardware so that your fitment's dialed in and you have an OEM feel, an OEM type installation when you're putting the PRP seats in. So to remove the OEM seat pad from the actual seat frame here on the base, there's going to be 4 bolts that you need to remove. These are 8mm bolts, and you are not going to use those 8mm bolts again. The PRP seats come with new bolts and hardware to mount the seat base frame to the new PRP seat base cushion. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this now, and we'll be looking at raw seat base framing. Alright, I removed the OEM seat cushion from the bottom of the seat frame. So the only difference now here is you're going to swap out the OEM bottom seat cushion for the PRP suspension seat bottom seat cushion. And you're not going to use the factory hardware, you're going to use the bolts that are provided with the kit. There's 8 total, 4 for this seat, 4 for the passenger seat, and also 8 washers. So I'm going to go ahead and mount the PRP seat base cushion to the OEM Polaris seat base frame, and then I'll be done here with the bottom part. Alright, I have the PRP seat cushion now mounted to the OEM seat frame. Important to notate at this phase, we removed the seat in 2 stages, removed the back and then the bottom. We have the flexibility to install both the base and the back on the PRP seat as one component. And the reason for that is that the OEM driver's side seat base has a slider built in, so we can slide the seat forward and backward to access the bolt holes to mount the seat in. So my recommendation is to mount it as one component. So I'm going to put the back of the seat on now, and I'm going to utilize the factory bolts that I removed earlier. There are already holes cut, and you can see the threads in there. Want to notate, I've installed quite a few of these, and some of the the holes that they cut out for these bolt holes are not quite big enough, and the fabric will bind on the threads of the bolt when you're putting this in. If that's the case in your scenario, you're going to have to cut a little bit of fabric, a tiny little bit, like an 1/8 inch around these holes. Be careful with the blade though, because if you slip, you're going to rip your new seat. So I'm going to go ahead and install the back of the seat now. Okay, I have the seat completely assembled now, and I'm going to lift this seat up as one unit, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in the Slingshot. There's going to be a couple things we need to do once we get it in there. We're going to need to make sure we hook up our harness, our factory harness that we removed when we removed the factory seat, and then we're going to go ahead and put the 4 bolts back in to mount the seat to the Slingshot. Alright, I have the seat sitting in the Slingshot here. I wanted to point out here that there's a little channel for this wiring harness right here. Make sure you have the harness in the channel so the wires don't get pinched underneath the weight of the seat. Also going to need to re-plug back in the harness we removed earlier. Last phase to install the seat after that's done is to install the 4 bolts to put the seat back in. Please reference your manual to see what the factory torque spec is on those. Okay, I have the driver's side seat completely installed. There's a few things I wanted to point out at this step. There is some Allen screws that hold on these little black plastic pieces behind your head on both the driver and passenger side. PRP includes a bolt or screw that has a much lower depth to it, and it's kind of flush. And the reason they did that is because on the prototype seats, these bolts started to eat into the back of the fabric. Here is a prototype seat that I tested for about a month. It's really minimal, but it was enough to address and fix it and provide a solution to the consumer. So these come with the kit. Make sure you install both of these here and on the passenger side. The other thing, which is optional, is on these PRP seats there is a little loop here for the seat belt. Now you don't have to use it. I personally do not use it, but if you do want to use it as kind of a guide for your seat belt, I wanted to point out that you need to remove this bolt that holds the bottom of the seat belt, and you need to slide the seat belt through the seat belt loop, and then you need to rebolt and fasten the seat belt to the slingshot. So that's optional. That's entirely up to you if you like the way it looks or not, but wanted to point that out. So driver's seat is completely done. Now I'm going to move on to the passenger seat. It's almost exactly the same, but there's just a few subtle differences that I want to point out. So there's the finished product on the driver's side. I want to, I already removed the passenger seat because I wanted to give you a visual of what it looks like and how it's different as far as how it bolts to the slingshot. Removal of the passenger side seat back is exactly the same. There's 2 bolts here, there's 2 bolts on that side. Slide the back of the seat off and you're done with that. On the base, the only difference between this side and the driver's side is that the 2 back bolts are different. One of them's mounted horizontally, and there's no slide rails on here, so accessing the bolts is a little bit more difficult. The most difficult one is the one mounted over here that's mounted horizontally, and what I used is I used a 3/8 drive with a 2.5-inch deep socket. This is a 16mm bolt. Everything else on the slingshot for the seats that we've removed has been 15mm. Even that back one there. So everything's 15mm. This is 16mm, 2.5-inch deep socket, 3/8 drive. Fits perfectly, and we found that that's the easiest way to remove that bolt there. Okay, cool. I have the base of the PRP seat in place. Once again, we are going to install the passenger side in 2 stages. We're going to do the base and then we're going to do the back. These are the same bolts on the front of the seat that we used on actually all 4 of the mounting bolts for the driver's side. There's only 2 of those for the passenger. Those go up front, and then the 2 back bolts on the passenger seat are different. The longest one is going to go nearest the center console and bolt straight down, and then the shorter brass bolt is going to go horizontal. This is also the one that's the 16mm head on it. So I'm going to go ahead and put all these in. Make sure you don't torque down any of these until you have all 4 threaded properly, because you are going with one horizontal, and if you crank this one down, it'll throw out the alignment to the one going down. So thread them all in, make sure they're not cross-threading, then torque these down to factory spec. Okay, I have the passenger seat base completely installed. So important to notate at this point, since you're putting the back on, you're working a little blind here because the other one was installed outside the vehicle. Now you're installing inside the vehicle, so you don't have as much workspace here. You only have a couple inches on this side. So you really want to make sure you have a clear shot on the threads in here, because your bolt, you don't want to have any fabric to bind on. Here's what it looks like before. This is how it comes from the factory, and here's how what I did to it. I just opened it up a little bit. You have a nice clear shot. You don't have to worry about the hole being just slightly bigger. This is all going to be completely covered by the bracket that mounts onto the seat here. So make sure you do this. If you don't, you're going to be fighting the back of the seat here for a while, and it's going to get frustrating. So make sure you clear it out. Be very careful not to slice your seat when you're blading the extra fabric off. Alright, I cleared a little fabric around the holes here. I got a clear shot of the threads on both the upper and lower on both sides of the seat. When you put this in, install it, there's 4 bolts, 2 on this side, 2 on the other. Install 1 bolt on this side. Let's say you start with the bottom one, and then go ahead and put the bottom bolt in on the other side. You want to make sure you put 1 bolt in on each side, preferably in the same location. Do lower and lower. That way you get your pivot point set. Then the upper bolts will be really easy to thread in. Okay, I put the bottom bolt in on one side of the seat. I just put it in a few threads, and then I put the bottom bolt in on the other side. Now I know that my seat is aligned properly, and I have like a pivot here. Pivot point's going to be dialed in. The angle is going to be correct. So I know when I do my upper bolts, that I'm not going to be cross-threading these. So you want to make sure you get all 4 in there. Get them in there loosely, just a couple threads. Once they're lined up and they're not binding or cross-threading, then you can go ahead and torque those down to factory. Alright, I have the passenger side seat completely installed. I wanted to notate here, like we did on the other side, that you should replace these little Allen head screws with the Phillips head screws that are included with the PRP kit. The head of the Phillips screw has a lower depth so that you don't get a rub point on the back of your brand new PRP seat. I'd like to thank you guys for watching the video. We appreciate your continued support, and I also want to let you know that this product is available at slingmods.com.